to Tiny Mike Big Conversations, the first episode of the podcast / radio show. Tiny Mike Big Conversations. We will talk about the story a little later, I'm sure. But to start off with, I want to introduce my beautiful, fabulous, phenomenal guest, poet, rapper, artist, intellect, and all-round fabulous human being, Mish.
Hello.
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 Thank you for coming on today.
Thanks for having me. This is great crack.
Today we are at Arc Bar, which is the first sober bar in Bristol. And to start off the podcast, we are going to talk about our journey into sobriety.
Yes.
Sobriety, recovery, mental health, all of the lovely things along the way.
The different winding ways that we can discuss this. Yeah, absolutely.
Trials and tribulations, journeys and poetry. So, Tiny Mic Big Conversations, it is not about the size of the mic, it's how you use it. So today, to start off with, I want to ask you a couple of questions, my love.
Take it away.
So firstly, we start the podcast with the question, when was the last time you fucked up? Because we want to embrace the shame here. We live in a society of cancel culture and shame culture, but as Brené Brown shows and as Carl Jung shows, if we don't embrace our shame, then it stays in the shadows. So we want to shed a little bit of light onto our shame by speaking about it openly, compassionately, empathetically.
Yeah. I thought you said pathetically then, but empathetically is
Empathetically.
actually is it was what you were going for. No, the last time I fucked up, I had what should have been a pretty predictable lapse over the old Christmas New Year's period, which I think for anyone is a particularly triggering period of time, but for anyone in recovery especially, Christmas, New Year's, whatever kind of family background you come from is a particularly difficult time, and I just happened to be in a situation where I didn't have my regular recovery support network around me, and so it became a petri dish of opportunities for my demons to come out and play, and I'd say that was the last time I fucked up. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We are going to touch on that properly a little bit later.
Absolutely.
Firstly, I want to say thank you for sharing that, because as anyone that goes through sobriety and is in recovery, talking about our lapses, and I love that you use lapse and not relapse.
Important distinction.
Very important distinction.
Yeah.
Words
Big time.
cast spells, and the word relapse, I think, ignites this sense of shame within us, and we don't want to be ashamed about this. Like we've spoken about before, recovery and healing is not linear.
You can learn as much from 12 months having never had a drink as you can from 12 drinks and a lapse. And I'm not encouraging the latter, but they always say, and I remember when I started my sobriety journey, you know, like relapses are inevitable. And I remember sitting there with my pride and my numbers under my belt saying, no, that'll never be me. And you're counting the months as they go by, and you feel more and more prepared, and you know, you feel the strength in you growing and growing and growing. And then, hey, aren't the experts and people who have been sober for all these years totally right? It really hits you out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And how you learn and bounce back from it, I think is like I say, the important element of relapse and lapse, because a relapse is when you completely return to a previous state of behavior and habits and attitudes, and a lapse could be one drink, or it could be one weekend, and it could be one big mistake. But as long as you are able to really sit with it, and again, that's what we're going to talk about, is sitting with the shame and sitting with the difficult feelings. If you can sit with that feeling and you can journal and learn from it, then it actually, you're only building your toolbox for the next time you're in that potential situation. And you know, I wouldn't ever encourage someone to consider even, you know, breaking away from whatever substance they're abstaining from. You know, keep that abstinence up, but if and when that bomb drops, it's not the end, and what you can learn from it and what can be developed in you in your long journey of sobriety and recovery and self-love the lessons are endless from these moments, and I'm grateful to be able to have a community around me to help me process those thoughts as well. I think that's such a key part of recovery.
100%. Community is so incredibly important. And I think a lot of people and a lot of conversations that I've had since working at ARC is really the isolation and loneliness that we feel going into sobriety, particularly in a city like Bristol, which is the third biggest city in the UK for drug and alcohol abuse, under Manchester and London.
Which is actually, I don't know if that's impressive or not, because London and Manchester, they really do, they've earned their stripes. But I guess Bristol does, it's been known for its being the kind of last bastion of free people in the UK when it comes to, the left wing and partying, and often those, elements go hand in hand. But what I'm therefore seeing in Bristol is also such a committed response to addressing the drug problem.
Yeah.
Maybe more so than Manchester and London, but then again, I'm not part of those communities in the same way I am in Bristol, so I can't talk on it. But the knee-jerk response from people in Bristol to help recovery take place in more people's lives compared to the amount of people who are partying, I think it is an improving number. And I think people in Bristol are aware of the cultures that we kind of reside in, and the ways of getting out of them, more than anything else. Yeah.
And I want to say, so one of the reasons that we were so late to start the podcast today is because there was a riot right outside of Arc Bar for far right riot, and then riots for the riots, and hella police. And it really made me think, when we speak about things like sobriety and doing the work, it seems so small and so minuscule in the grand scheme of everything that is going on in the world right now. But when I looked at what was going on outside, I really thought, well, this is why this conversation is so important, because the world seems so uncertain, and there is so much fear and so much anger and so much violence in this uncertainty, which is why we need more spaces of consciousness and community so that we can work together in unity to figure out what we actually need, not...
Absolutely. And I'd say as well, like the days of the dreamers sitting around trying to work out the next revolution through a bottle of wine has to end. Do you know what I mean? And I guess not to get too political, but alcohol has been the opiate of the people longer than any other substance, and to abstain from alcohol, which again is the only drug that the governments seem to deem legal and appropriate for us to use. I think having an anti-alcohol stance, for one, is a very political stance to take, and through the clarity that we find through not drinking and not, I guess, being the dreamers in the bubbles. Do you know what I mean? Like having the clarity and the focus, and being able to then attend community spaces and have a clear mind to discuss and debate and create a new space. Like, I think it's an incredibly anti-fascist stance to take, sobriety, sometimes, actually.
I agree. Can I nerd out a little bit?
Please, always.
So, on the research for this, I wanted to learn a little bit more about the history of alcohol, and the history particularly of the way British drinking culture is, because we might not have the biggest intake per person in worldwide, but we are the biggest culture of binge drinkers.
Absolutely. So
I think in order to really understand why this is a norm for us, it's important to look back at the history.
Take it away. Teach me.
Okay, so in almost every single ancient culture, cross-culturally, alcohol was found and used as medicinal practices, and also as celebratory practices, right? But there was always, every philosopher or every person in power would look down on binge drinking. Until we get to the 8th century in the UK, where ale and beer was seen as staple in the diet for working class people. Not just working class people, but the churches were using it as well, because many water sources were not safe enough to drink. So they drank beer. And it was a good source of calories as well. So if we couldn't grow our food, then we just get it from the drinks. And then in the 17th and 18th century, as the Industrial Revolution rose, working hours rose and working conditions plummeted. So to have some sort of escapism, we started pub culture. Working class would go to the pubs and drink beer, mainly men. And then as the time goes on, we get gin.
Oh, Geneva, the mother's ruin.
The Mother's Ruin. And I didn't even realize what that was. I knew there was a pub called the Mother's Ruin. And then when I was reading
That's
into
where
this,
it comes from, yeah.
Yeah.
William Hogarth, one of the original printers, and when the printing press was kind of like really popularized, William Hogarth made a piece called Gin Lane. And it's one of the most amazing pieces, especially as like a child of an alcoholic, to witness, you know, this display of what one substance, it being gin in this situation, can do to a community. Do you know what I mean? And how it absolutely tore and industrialized Britain apart.
Gin Lane.
Gin Lane by William Hogarth.
So that's a painting piece?
A print piece. But yeah, so it's an illustration that he then got printed. It was William Hogarth did a lot of... God, I hope it's Hogarth, and I haven't got that completely wrong.
we will test this, and we will post it on Instagram
no, it's
later.
definitely
William
the
Hogarth.
piece is definitely called Gin Lane,
Okay.
and it's just an incredible depiction on, I guess I want to say the depravity of addiction, but I don't want to put the depravity on those who are addicted, because at the end of the day, whether it's gin or I guess in the same era, you know, the British Empire completely tearing apart China with opium, for example. You know, flooding countries with opium dens, and the returning, even as late as, returning soldiers from the Boer War in the end of the 1800s, and then returning soldiers from World War One. These were abandoned working class people who often all they had was alcohol and unfortunately drugs to process the PTSD of what their country had continually put them through when it comes to colonialism and the wars that the working class were expected to fight for the rich.
Yeah. Well, it's escapism, isn't it? Gin was a higher percentage of alcohol than beer. It was cheaper. You could get drunk quicker and spend less peas. But in that came the rise and the start and evolution of binge culture. Like, why, and this is the question that I keep coming back to, and I'm doing all of this research, is why do we drink? Why do we take drugs? It's not the drugs and the drink that are the issue. It's the reasons why, the underlying reason why we're doing it that causes the issues.
Completely. And I think when we talk about it, I think we can hit the usual topics, which is about escapism or a need to find community. And it's, you know, if everyone sat around the table drinking, you're not going to be sitting on a different table not drinking. You know, that's how you find your people. But it's that... I think at the core of it, and what I see in so many people is when you get a culture of binge drinking or binge substance use, is people. It's the inability to sit with the truth.
Yeah.
If you've got something you need to focus on and something you want to get done, doing that half cut is not. You're not going to get it done as well as you want to. But if you've got something where your heart's not really in it and your soul is being eroded by it, doing that pissed kind of feels like no qualm. And I think that's where the bingeness comes from. Like, you can, people will say they're not addicts, but they white knuckle a 9-to-5 job for 5 days a week and then drink for 3 days straight, right? And they pair every meal with more alcohol than there was calories in the food on the plate. And that in of itself is such a reflection that we have, we've adopted alcohol predominantly, especially in Britain, and my Irish background is scourged with alcohol, unfortunately. But we've adopted it to make sense of things. Because facing up to the harsh, cold light of day and reality and doing that sober takes a fucking lot to achieve. Am I allowed to swear? Sorry.
I think so.
Fuck yeah. But yeah, and I think that is the main thing. I think anyone who is an addict can appreciate is how easy it is to become into how easy it is to get into a habit of binge
Yeah.
of drinking, you know. But we've got the most amazing culture. If you have a breakup in the UK, you have a drink. If you get with someone, you have a fiance, you have a drink. Start a new job, get a drink.
It's any
Get fired,
emotion.
get a drink. You know what I mean? Like, and don't get me wrong, I'm such an advocate for the joy and the genius of a pub. You sit at a bar, even just drinking coffee, and you're still at the intersection of socialization, and you can still meet the most weird and wonderful people, but they are still inevitably temples of bodily destruction.
Yeah.
And I think that is, you know, it's disguised with a really good Spotify playlist and really nice lighting and decor, but at the end of the day, these are watering holes that we can go to, destroy ourselves, forget, and unfortunately then inevitably further the mistakes and maybe the situation we're in,
Yeah.
rather than sitting in a field drinking green tea and planning a revolution, you know. And I never almost want the antithesis of addiction to be some kind of like extreme hippie abstinence, but like, you know, like you say, we've got this like long history of binge drinking. What is it? Oscar Wilde said, he said, work is the plight of the drinking class. And the way he spun that round is very, very important.
Yeah.
Because people, I mean, it was only in the 1950s, 60s that people even started getting weekends. Like the work, when it comes to workers' rights, it was actually Boots the chemist, who basically invented the weekend and the 40-hour week. Before that, workers' rights were crazy, and you know, you're a 5-year-old child working in a cotton mill in Manchester, and of course, by nature, you're going to be surrounded by watching it, and that, you know, 100 years later, I mean, fuck me, we're all the age you and me are. We see how the millennials and the boomers kind of treated alcohol, and
I am actually a millennial, last millennial.
technically you are, no, and I'm on that weird cusp, who's still hanging on to my Gen Z qualities.
Just about a Gen
But
Z.
you're either one or another, but but like you know, we've seen how people partied in the 90s and 2000s, and especially going up until 2008 when we had the crash. You know, you said about, was it 2004?
2004 was what's called peak booze. So from the 1950s, just before the 1950s, so going back from 1800s till then, when you speak about the pub culture and it being a space of escapism, there was this rise of what's called the temperance movement. And what this group of people did was create places like temperance cafes, which is what ARC is really, is a temperance cafe, a space that's free from alcohol where communities can come and actually connect. And they made, they did events, they did trips away. And the guy who did the first ever temperance trip away was Thomas Cook.
There we go.
The creator of package holidays.
Would you believe it?
Would you believe? And then in the 1950s, this teetered down as the government realized and capitalism realized that they could make a lot of money on alcohol, and marketing increased, and it became the normality. And then, as we spoke about yesterday, you know, the 70s, 80s, 90s, that was rave culture and party culture.
Right, absolutely.
So from that moment, binge drinking rose and rose and rose and rose until 2004, when we get peak booze, where we were having 11.5 liters of alcohol per person a year. And then at that moment, there was something that I read, it was just before the recession or just during the recession, because we felt such a sense of lacking of control, we wanted to take control of the lack of control that we felt in our lives.
Yeah. And that is it at the end of the day. Like, I might not be able to control my, say, the state of the work situation I'm in, or the country, or the collapsing community, but I can control which beer I order. I can control which mixer I have with which spirit, and that gives you a momentary moment of autonomy and agency.
As well,
yeah,
letting
absolutely.
go and, like we say, escaping from what all of the chaos that is happening in
Yeah.
the world. And
Well, it was what John Keats once said is wine is the greatest amnesiac you'll ever discover. You know, the bubbling, winking bubbles on the brim and all that kind of stuff. And that's not to romanticize it, but yeah, like you can see that there's been this long historical relationship with the ability to just forget.
yeah,
I think it's a luxury. It's a very cheap luxury that people lean into. Do you know what I mean? And you can't blame people. Again, the working class, and this is something that I think I really kind of try and talk about, is that a lot of addiction, it stems from class. It stems from poverty, and it stems from dependence. And if we want to address that in society, we have to address the class issues we have. And we have to address for example, like the childcare system. We have to address people who are, young offenders and preventing them from reoffending and therefore going into a prison cycle. There are so many ways, like as a young working class person, selling drugs, for example, has been a way that I've in the past ended up needing to, make money, and it's a horrible inevitability, but there is no other way to somehow equal the playing field, and so you become part of the problem that you're also trying to destroy. You know what I mean? And so it's everywhere around you. Also, you're a kid, you're growing up, and you see these grown adults, your role models, and this is how they choose to process the terror and the pain that they are trying not to look dead in the eye. And so, of course, you learn the exact same way. Like I said, I come from a family of, unfortunately, alcoholics, and alcohol was the drug that destroyed my family and destroyed my childhood. And I think that's why I've got personally such a long-standing difficult relationship with alcohol myself, both as someone who dislikes it, but also someone who has a painful penchant for having a drink, and I think that's why alcohol is definitely the biggest demon that I, would advocate against. Because, I mean, I don't remember the last time I smoked 2 joints and picked up a gram of Coke. 2 pints, and then the dealer's getting called. Do you know what I mean? And there's something we say in one of the recovery meetings I go to about like how alcohol, especially when you're loosening your what's the word? You start kind of forgetting all your rules and stuff like that. You hit the fuck it button.
Inhibitions.
Yeah. When you're loosening, your inhibitions are loosened, you hit the fuck it button. And I think that's such a, it leans into self-destruction. And it is a part of self-destruction. But once you hit that fuck it button, all responsibility goes out the window. You're not playing the scene forward. You're not remembering the last time you were hungover, the last time you spent your last 50 quid on drugs rather than food or rent. You're not remembering that. You're just living almost in the exhilaration of making that decision for yourself. But you've got to remember, Bob Vylan said it perfectly, the state doesn't have to kill people who are killing themselves, right? And so if we're spending our days, whether we're enjoying the drink, enjoying the drugs, or hating it, either way, as long as we're wrestling with addiction, we're not wrestling with the powers that be and the people who control us,
Exactly.
And that's a huge part of what we, I think, as a community are trying to address, is that once you sober up and you clear your brain, you kind of realize how much work there is to be done,
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, and you kind of touched upon it then, but kind of talking about the history of alcohol and the history of binge drinking, and what were the reasons? Do I want to do, what are the reasons, or do I want to do, when did you, I'm going to combine the questions.
Okay, yeah.
When did you first start drinking or taking drugs?
Yeah.
And what were the reasons that led you to the point to need to stop?
So it was a hell of a long journey, I guess. For me, it was I think it was about a 12-year relationship with extreme drug use. And extreme drug use, that's an excessive way of putting it. So I started drinking when I was 14, 15 years old, and then started doing, smoking weed, and then started doing harder drugs by the age of 16, 17. I guess the reasons I started were, a part of the culture back home. It was I grew up in Luton and then moved to a smaller town where there was really nothing to do apart from sit in a skate park and, you know, drink extremely strong cider. And I
Katie's.
think pardon?
Katie's.
It wasn't Katie. I think it was
I used to do White Ace back in the day.
White Ace. It was Frosty Jacks. Frosty Jacks. Yes. That was it. Frosty Jacks and blackcurrant. Frosty Jacks and black. And I guess it was a part of that, like, you know, for me initially there was a reckless. This is what being young is, right? You know, we take drugs, we eat too, we do alcohol, we party. But what ended up happening is I ended up forming a relationship with socializing and with confidence and with myself as a musician, with bravado on stage. And hey, haven't poets and musicians got a long-standing relationship? Not necessarily with romanticizing it, but you know, I was a 16-year-old reading the Beat Generation, and these are poets running around on Benzedrine and smoking marijuana in Mexico, and I guess I was reading it and slightly romanticizing it, but that's because
incredibly glamorized.
Well, this is it. Like, and you can read the autobiography of you know, hey, I knew about Sid Vicious when I was 15, 16 years old, and so I knew not to do heroin, but that didn't stop me from then doing cocaine 2 years later, right? Even though I know I had learned all about how crack cocaine had destroyed like the Afro-American communities in New York throughout the hip hop community like movement. So it was like, I guess it's that like, it's so a part of music and culture and normality, but also a way of escapism and connection. And I'm neurodivergent myself, and so, you know, trying to navigate social situations, suddenly having a pint in your hand, it makes you
so much easier.
It makes you belong, right? And so that was my relationship. I then got to uni, and I think like almost like a simulacrum of the students of the early 2000s, I saw uni as just a great opportunity to continue partying. I don't know how I got through, don't know how I got my degree. I saw also university as an opportunity to run away from home and escape, and kind of almost have an institutionalized form of estrangement where there was money and there was structure and routine to my day, and I could also process the fact that I couldn't no longer be with my family, you know. But then it's not like I was sitting with that and processing that whilst performing an education. It was the fact that I got lost in pills.
Yeah.
I got lost in powders and the booze and the booze and the booze. And I completely ignored it. And I guess, you know, I don't want to give you my full life story, but, you know, like leaving uni and then getting into more, you know, like, again, subcultures when it comes to like music, whether you're in the punk scene or the rave scene or the rap scene, whatever, there's always someone smoking there's always someone going to the toilet saying, do you want some of this? And I guess it's an inclusive thing. Like to be really vulnerable with you, like I was that kid who was left out, and so if all the cool kids are going to the toilet, I don't want to be left out.
That's why I started smoking.
Right? I want to go in, and it wasn't peer pressure. That was peer pressure that came from me in order to like, well, that person's cool, and I want to be their friend, so I'll have a bit of that, you know.
Behavior.
And you don't realize that in doing that, possibly, you know, like big thing for your social life to try and develop in that way, you don't realize that you're going to build an addiction and a reliance on something that's actually gonna that's gonna please one of your demons, and you have no idea what demon you're about to awake. And so for me, there were, you know, a good few years. Lockdown really didn't help. Lockdown at some points was a really creative time for me, and at other points was a very destructive time for me. But I got into the pattern of whether it's the people I was hanging out with or even just how I would instigate socializing. You know, I got into the habit, like a lot of people do across the country, of, you know, combining cocaine and alcohol and cigarettes and that being what socialization is. I guess it all came to a tragic fucking end when I realized that all of the reasons that I was drinking, as in to escape and to not process the trauma that I had been through, not process the abuse that I'd suffered, all of these reasons that I wanted to enhance life and escape my truths, eventually you become the problem that you have run away from. And what started my journey of recovery, and it's funny, I've said I've wanted to get sober probably since I was 19. I've got friends and partners, ex-partners from that era who I remember dating someone when I was 19 who was straight edge, and I was still in my party days, but we would talk for hours and hours and hours about sobriety. And since the age of 19, I'm 28 now, so that was 9 years ago, I've been wanting to get sober. But maybe sometimes didn't have my reason, didn't have my moment, I hadn't lost enough. Life hadn't got visceral enough. But I guess I don't want to be too vague, but I also don't want to maybe speak too flippantly. I was in love with some phenomenal people, and those people really loved me. And what I chose to do in response to that love was show them anything but love back. And I'm not going to say it was because of my addiction, because, you know, we can scapegoat and blame it, but I had the most amazing people around me, some of the most beautiful people I've ever shared moments in my life with, who, because of my addiction and because of the ways that my behaviors and habits and the cycles that I hadn't broken and the trauma I hadn't addressed, for years you can fly the flag of I'm an abused, hurt person, but hey, hurt people. And I fucking hate that sentence. I think like people use it to excuse, right? Hurt people. But that's when the buck stops. That's when the responsibility comes in. And 2024 was an abysmal year where everything I tried to build during active addiction collapsed around me, because anything you build with poor foundations will collapse. And it's my true deep regret is that I hadn't worked this out earlier, and that there are now phenomenal people on this planet who are going to be processing the pain I put them through while I was in active addiction. And that is a sentence I have to be able to say to myself, because of course, yes, my recovery journey is my lifelong blah, 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 and I can sit with that. But I have to sit with the fact that there are other people who now have a journey because of my addiction. And they have pain to process because of my addiction. And they've also got really good memories tainted by my addiction.
Can I just say, hurt people, but it is also an inevitability in life that we are going to hurt people. We cannot go through life without even accidentally causing some sort of pain or small t trauma or large t trauma.
Of course.
On
but
another human.
If you are aware that, hey, you're more likely to cause, say, if you use the term accident, you accidentally hurt people every day. Cool, I understand that. But if you know that accident is increased every time you have a powder up your nose, and then you continue to take the powder, that's not an accident. You're not accidentally hurting people. You are inadvertently choosing to hurt yourself and other people. And I know that might...
When we're stuck in the cycle.
Yeah, and I know that might be quite a hard response to take, but I think when it comes to talking about responsibility and accountability, accountability is a really big thing. And it's not just saying, oh, I messed up and I was addicted and I've got some things to learn. Accountability is actually looking at the fact is, no, I consistently chose to do something. I am a human being with agency and autonomy. I'm not just some ill person who can't stop drinking and can't stop doing something. I am someone who, there was a volition. There was a conscious choice, even if it was a very ill conscious choice.
Could you say it as a conscious choice when you are, and I'm not saying this to excuse behavior. I think you're completely right in terms of taking accountability of your behavior is so important and is a really hard fucking pill to swallow when you're not taking pills anymore. However, you're not consciously making a decision when you are unconscious.
No, when you're in the midst of it, it doesn't feel like a conscious decision. No. It feels like a knee-jerk response. It feels like you just reaching out for your medicine.
Yeah.
Right? And this is another thing we always talk about with addiction is that the substances are not the problem. No. They are the solution. They are the solution to whatever the fuck you've got going on inside you. But the consciousness that I talk about and where it falls in with accountability and is the fact that everyone who's had a drink or had a party and something's gone wrong, we've all woken up with a hangover, a long fucking paragraph from a friend that we've pissed off. Did that stop us? Or did we repeat the same behavior the week after?
Sometimes we need more fucking lessons though,
don't
we?
And again, this is maybe what I try and use as much as I can, is that it's not just the self-destruction of myself that I have to be responsible for, but it's the fact that if I choose to self-destroy, other people become responsible. And that might be, I literally hurt you, I break a boundary or say something rude, or I'm a mess and you need to pick me up and lend me some money because I've spent all my money on drugs, you know? Like, whatever it is, you're not just affecting yourself. And that's when, at the heart of, like, active addiction, trying to cut through to someone is so important, because I think at the core of most people, there is an empathy. You don't want to hurt your mum, you don't want to upset your partner, you don't want to scare off your best friend, but you do want a drink. And that's where the consciousness has to come in. And you have to make the decision of are you prioritizing love or self-destruction?
And that's
know?
where we need to learn the tools and techniques that can allow that consciousness to come in.
Yeah,
Because when we talk
absolutely.
about addiction is the masking of the pain that we don't want to feel. So we'll wake up maybe the night before and say, I'm not going to do that again. Wake up in the morning, might have that same thought still until 2 hours kick in, and the pain is so unbearable that you need something to numb it.
Just to take the edge off,
Yeah, and that's when we go back to this place of community and connection, but also, like I say, the tools and techniques. For me, discovering yoga and meditation was life-changing. And it wasn't life-changing in an instant. It took me 4 years still to really get to a point where I was able to go sober. But that was 4 years of a solid practice.
Yeah.
Because I was able to cultivate a relationship with my body and actually feel how my body was feeling. Because there was so much pain in there that I didn't recognize.
But that's something that's really important, right? As I said, I started drinking and using when I was 14, 15. So only sobering up at 27 was the first time I knew what it felt like to spend a week without being hungover. It was the first time I ever knew what it was like to breathe without a lung full of weed smoke, or to not be clearing a Colombian cold for the first 3 days of the week, you know? That was the first time in 12 years. Most people, when you talk to them about sobering up, yeah, of course, they've done like dry January, which is the easiest month to do. Like, come back to me when you've done dry June, and then we'll fucking talk, okay? Because dry January is just like, that's like getting a pat on the back for walking a marathon. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think people have never seen themselves in a state of sobriety and are scared, and it's understandably scared. They don't know what their body potential is. And I think also as well, maybe this is elements of like the recovery culture and communities. There's a lot of hardlinedness with that, and there's a lot of people who, you know, the stereotypes of people. They say sobriety is a hell of a drug, right? People sober up and then they're running 10K every day. I have done that myself. They sober up and then they get into all sorts of things to try and distract from what's going on, because we don't, as a society, have the skill set to sit with our issues. We have Instagram, and we have doom scrolling, and that is the closest thing.
Before that, we had the British stiff upper lip culture.
Right, and that was the closest thing we have to meditation. And meditation is obviously how.
Would you say doom scrolling is a meditation?
No, I wouldn't say it is, but
No.
I would say it's the closest thing anyone has to switching off their brain. It's just the content you are receiving when you're switching off your brain is poisoning you even more.
Is overstimulating your brain and causing you to be less connected to your body.
And no community we've managed to kind of form on a mass level has a healthy. So maybe no, I don't want to be too hyperbolic, but I don't see many or any communities that have a healthy way of sitting and processing pain and difficult emotions that doesn't somehow pair with addiction. I think the closest thing that I maybe see with it are heavily religious people. I've got a lot of Muslim brothers and sisters, you know, assalamu alaikum, and the way that obviously alcohol is not a part of their culture. I'm not saying, you know, there aren't other ways
Spiritual cultures,
you know,
Buddhism.
But spiritual cultures and spiritual accountability and the community that comes through that. This isn't a theological conversation. This is purely, if you put 30 people in a room who have all committed to not getting pissed and trying to work together, whether you worship Allah or you worship Buddha, you have found a way to hold each other accountable and found systems in place to sit with pain. You found a community. Suddenly we're not going to the pub to talk about the fact you've been fired from your job. You're coming round to someone's house and you're eating good, healthy food. Someone's making you an okra and chickpea curry and sitting you down and holding you and talking
you back
to
into
you.
your body. Can I talk about trauma?
Yes, yeah, go ahead.
Just to talk a little bit about like the context of, I don't know if anyone has read the book The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk.
Yep.
Fantastic book, fantastic mind. And what he talks about is, so Bessel van der Kolk was one of the pioneers, researchers of coining the term PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome. PTSD disorder. Thank you. Spicy mind. Post-traumatic stress disorder. He started researching trauma when he was working with Vietnam War veterans. And he noticed the same symptoms over and over again. But when he stopped researching these war veterans and started doing more work with people with mental health issues, he noticed that these people were also showing the same symptomologies of repeating the same situations that potentially led to the feelings that they're feeling. And what he found in his research is that when our fight or flight system is activated, when the stress hormones are pumping through our body and we don't either A, fight, flight, and release those hormones in that moment, or B, we're not surrounded by a community of people who are there to hold us and support us, then the feeling gets trapped in the body and stored until we are able to safely do so. But if it's stored and trapped for too long, then it becomes a trauma. So when you talk about these things of like religious and spiritual people being in community and eating beautiful food, that's like Buddhist practices, spiritual practices, and even modern day Western medical practices, is bringing people into our bodies so we can feel, because we need to feel the pain, otherwise it's going to stay there. And if we don't feel the pain, then we can't feel the beautiful feelings.
Yeah.
We can't feel happiness, we can't feel joy, we can't feel elation, because it's blocked by this feeling that we're trying so desperately to repress.
And everyone's riddled with it. I think we can all get lost in our own individual narrative of like, oh, I'm hurt, I've been traumatized. And fucking everyone has.
Big T
Talk to anyone else. Talk to anyone. And like, I think trauma would love to separate us. And it would maybe even love to go like, yeah, like you say, like, oh, well, that person's not suffered enough as much as I've suffered. But you'll find that every single person has suffered. And that's
it doesn't matter about this is the main point I really want to drill in when you say, oh, you haven't suffered as much as me. It doesn't matter what the situation is, as long as if your body and your amygdala sees it as a threat.
Yep.
The amygdala, when I speak about when you say I'm not conscious of the decision, or I was conscious of the decisions when you're in your addiction, your amygdala is taken over. So your prefrontal cortex, the conscious part of your mind, literally isn't working.
Yeah.
So you are not yourself, which is why we need these practices in community and practices like breath work to calm down our fight or flight response, switch Mr. CEO Bossman prefrontal cortex back on so that we can actually consciously make some decisions.
Yeah.
But if we don't know these techniques and we don't know these tools, then we're stuck in these cycles.
But also, if we don't know who to talk to, who to turn to and who to find them, like I feel incredibly privileged that when I needed to get sober, I had people in this city that I could call up and say, right, today's the day. When's the next fucking Narcotics Anonymous meeting? When's the next AA meeting? Where's the queer AA community? Which there is an amazing queer AA community in Bristol, I have to say.
And we will put all of the details.
Especially to that meeting, because it's incredible. But the fact that people don't know where to turn to, and if all your friends are drinkers, fuck me, I'm not gonna lie, the amount of times where I've been talking about sobering up at 8 a.m. at an afters, finishing half a gram of coke, because even after all that partying and all that enjoyment, I'm still sitting there going, I've had enough of this. The party is over, but I don't know where to go. So I'm talking about it at an afters while still sniffing coke, because some people, you don't know who to turn to, and it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing to call yourself an addict. There's still such a stigma. And there's a stigma about saying I go to AA meetings. And there's a stigma about saying it's not even just AA, but I need to go to Cocaine Anonymous and I need to go to Narcotics Anonymous. But I tell you, do you know what? Earlier on this year, I was working at Glastonbury Festival, and I did 7 days in that field with nothing but hash. And I was in my big process of getting rid of alcohol and cocaine. And so hash was I guess the phrase you use is the better the devil you know than the devil you don't. And it was a necessary evil for me to kind of wean myself off bigger demons.
Would you call it an evil? Like,
I don't want to debate cannabis because I
Okay.
think that is something that, like, at the end of the day, substance and escapism and addiction, you don't need a substance, man. You can become a workaholic, you can become a sex addict. Your addiction is your addiction, and I think cannabis can be used so medicinally, and I am such an advocate for that, but that doesn't stop me from saying I'm still a cannabis addict. Do you see what I mean? But I was still using hash at the time to not do cocaine, to not take fucking MCAT, to not take ketamine, and not get absolutely wasted every day. And the thing that really grounded me at Glastonbury was the fact that they had set up for the southeast corner, which, if anyone knows Glastonbury, is Shangri-La, it's Block 9, it's the naughty corner. It's famously called the naughty corner because it goes on late and it's where all the crazy parties happen. You know it, you know. Now, the naughty corner this year, set up by one of the most amazing trans women I've ever met, a person called Gary, started its own, you know, Gary,
Yeah,
started its
Gary.
own Narcotics Anonymous group.
yes.
And yeah, of course, in the healing fields, there's a
Shout out
there's
to
a
Gary.
multidisciplinary tent, and there's AA and there's CA, and you can go to the tent and sit in a circle and cross-legged. But the NA group, it was hardcore in a really strong way because it was like, we're the people, we don't get to go to bed, we don't get to go and, you know, do yoga at 9 p.m. and then get into our tent. We're working till 5 in the fucking morning, watching, or later or earlier, whatever, watching a sea of people absolutely off their face. We might be working in responsibilities of like health and safety, of like crowd management, and our colleagues are off their face. And it's normalized in the community. And so for me to be able to go to NA at Glastonbury, dude, that was actually like, and I, you know, you can get guest lists and like secret entrances and great wristbands to all the best corners of that Glastonbury, and there's some great bars and stages. The coolest fucking tent I was able to get into, and the coolest secret group of people was that NA group.
It's so interesting that you
Genuinely.
said that because I was actually going to message you before you went to Glastonbury to put you in contact with Gary.
And Gary's a phenomenal
Incredible
power.
human.
Like, and
We will also link this on the Instagram. after
100,
this.
100, like a real force to be reckoned with. And the performance I did at the Sober Spaces day party at Trinity Centre, Gary was there at that, and I think having Gary in the crowd and then just seeing the prolific work that they continue to do, and not just in England, you know, in wherever they are in the world, is so powerful. And I met them at a very humble queer NA group. I think it was on a Friday night. Feeling very sorry for myself, and went in and was like, I have no idea what's going to happen here, and met some of the most amazing people, including Gary. And once you meet the people, once you get that first step, that first bit of advice, the first buzzword, that's when it really helps. And the person who brought me to my first NA meeting, I don't know if they'd want me to name them. Again, anonymous, that's the whole point of it. But they brought me to my NA meeting and they sat with me, and I was terrified. I was sitting in a room of smackheads and crackheads, and I was sitting there going, I don't belong here. I just party too hard, and I've made some mistakes in relationships, and I don't belong here. And he turned to me and said, you've got more in common with everyone in this room than you do with the people outside this room, because you have chosen and actually switched your brain into saying no. And the more time I spent in that room, the more time I spent talking to those people, whatever walk of life they were from, the more that there were buzzwords and phrases that I could understand. And there was a woman doing a share, which is very normal. I don't know if you've been to any, yeah. And like her share, my first ever meeting gave me the most powerful quote. And they said, we go to therapy to deal with what happened to us, and we go to the meetings to deal with what we've done to other people. And that is at the root of accountability and community and culture, okay? Because the therapy is how we heal the demons, and how we do the shadow work. Whether it's therapy through your therapists, or whether it's through meditation or yoga, or there's a lot of different ways we can therapize ourselves. But when we go to those communities and we go to those spaces and we go to those meetings and we sit there, it's not just about the free tea and the coffee and the getting a chance to hang out and some kind of church backroom. It's actually so we can sit there, be surrounded by people who understand the fuck ups
Yeah.
and the mistakes. And they're not there to validate you. God, they are not there to validate you. And they will tell you when you fucked up, but they will not shame you from it, because it's the shame that creates the spiral
Yes,
that makes you continue.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, do you know what? Like, I feel so, like I've said, the state that led me, the series of events that led me to sobriety, I feel so much regret and remorse about. But again, that was the breaking point for me. Some people never reach their breaking point. Some people never stop their cycle, and I feel privileged that I at least found my breaking point. And the main truth that I have to kind of attach to that is it's just heartbreaking that my breaking point came at the expense of other people, and that's the feeling that I always double back around to, and where again, the responsibility and accountability lies is I'll go to therapy to talk about what happened to me, and I'll go to meetings to process what I did to other people, you know?
My darling, thank you for sharing that. And the only thing that's come to my mind from this conversation and the conversation we had yesterday, and then thinking back to your beautiful, beautiful performance at that Sober Spaces Day party, I would love to open up the space, if you feel called to share that beautiful poem.
You want a bit of poetry?
I would love a bit of poetry.
Yeah, go on. There's always time for poetry. Go on. Okay, and we were talking about this earlier on. It's quite nice. Like, there's no big music. There's no frilly pink dress this time. It's just bare bones words. But it's nice to whisper these words sometimes.
Let the words speak.
So this poem is called "This Is Rebirth." This will not be my tomb, a lifetime spent and wasted in a substance womb, rattling round and rocking myself to stillness in the corner of a dilapidated room, in the shade, in the shadow and shame of all that I consumed. Nah, that inebriation cannot be my trial, sentence, prison, or doom. The first time we are born, pain and anguish and screaming, we are pulled into this world with the promise of a beautiful life. And this is rebirth. Pain and anguish and screaming, but of a whole new kind. Pulled into a world, into another beauty that they still claim is there for me. This slow corruption of the soul cannot and will not be my life's goal. And reclaiming my freedom will be my greatest daily achievement. The cravings feel longer than the days I walk through. The thoughts feel darker than the nights from which I run. The battles feel harder than any enemy I have overcome, but I fight on day and night and day, choosing strength over comfort just for today, in the hope of life anew. Sometimes all we have is hope. A fool's hope, may it be, it is still hope. I yell into the void, what is the fucking point? And the void whispers back to me, that's up for you to find. There is so much to live for, and I deserve to give myself that second chance. I deserve to love and be loved and advance and kiss archangels while I dance. And so I've got my reason why. I've got my regrets and I've got my old life. I've got a whole city waiting for me to break and lapse and for my heart to implode and my body to collapse. And I am now closer to salvation than I have ever been before. Born on your own, die on your own. In between, you earn your own respect. With all the trauma and tribulation and trysts in time, I am flying higher without intoxication now than anyone could ever expect. Above that inferno where my cruelest days are kept. putting distance between me and the days I most regret. Digging, digging, keep on mining for the jewels within. Because yes, there is hurt, and yes, there is dirt, there is hate, abuse, and sin, but underneath, treasures are still glistening. I am outrunning my demons, though they chase with bated breath. I am partying harder than my younger self with what joy I still have left. I have quit alcohol, cocaine, weed, and all the fucking rest. I am unstoppable, I am reborn, and I have escaped that living death. Thank you.
Honey, every single time I hear that, it touches a part of my heart that didn't have the words to express what I needed to express around the time that I was going sober. And I think I know that is the beauty of poetry and spoken word.
Right.
And when I was going through my sobriety, it was because the catalyst was because of some health issues that I was going through, and it was incredibly isolating for about 5 years of my life. And poetry just came to me because throughout that time, I didn't have words to describe what was going on. I didn't know how to explain what was happening to my body because no one knew how to explain what was happening to my body.
Right.
And for some reason, these words would come and it would allow me to process.
The words, I mean, like, I'm biased. I'm a poet and a lyricist, but because of music and lyrics, I would say music and lyrics and poetry and extending that to, literature in any sense. Once you can read that another human being has processed something that you feel like is the most isolating experience and thought and feeling, if another human being, and they might have lived and died 50 years before you were born, but they've still experienced what you've experienced. Sometimes, like you say, it is just someone phrasing something you can't, in all your commotion, put into words. And, I shared that playlist with you, and I know we've got some songs from it. And then there are tunes on there that I had to build this playlist both to listen to people discussing addiction issues, to listen to the voices of people who have had relationships with addicts, to listen to the, I guess there are inspiring songs on the playlist that I built to help, sober up, but there's also songs that they romanticize drinking and drug use, and for me to listen to them as a sober person sometimes gives me a nice dopamine hit. So that's all I need to do. I'll listen to that song and go, hey, and now I don't even need the drink. I just feel the power of a good song. But other times, it's really good to hear the rhetoric of, Post Malone, Pour Me a Drink. Hilarious tune. I love listening to it. But the notion that you're having a bad day, so brother, come on and pour me a drink. When you can listen to someone else saying it, you can actually maybe even hear how deranged it is. I know. And you need that space. And so I don't even think that if you're in recovery, you just need to listen to poems and songs about sobriety or sobering up. Sometimes you need to, I've tried finding songs from every corner of the world, but Circle the Drain by Katy Perry. It's a song about dating an addict. And then, as an addict who obviously has had people date me, I might not be able to find out what my exes have want to say about me and want to say to my face, but I can listen to songs like that and I can hear what it was like for someone else to date an addict, and then I can start empathizing and start thinking, fuck, that must have been fucking shit dating me if that was someone else's experience, you know what I mean? And I think words are so important. Words are magic, and they will teach you.
They curse,
there you go. All of that, and it, we're here to learn from a lineage of the people who lived before us. There's no such thing as I. I don't believe in this individualist culture. I is another. Whoever that poet Rimbaud said that. Je suis un autre. I is another. everything you are is a culmination of everyone and everything that's happened to you and everywhere you've been.
Damn straight.
And, if we can find more, and they're not prayers, they're not parables, they're not holy scriptures, but if you can find songs and poems that keep you on the straight and narrow. I've got a friend, she uses the song One Way or Another by Blondie.
Okay.
One way or another, I'm going to find you, I'm going to get you. She says that's the voice of her addict demon.
Oh, I
You
love
know
that.
that she's that
I'm gonna find ya.
that her demon's gonna
Have
get you.
you personalised yours? Because mine's called Ange.
I haven't.
And Ange used to be a very whiny little voice in my mind, but
Yeah.
I've realised she's also incredibly seductive.
Yes, I've not given mine a name. I don't want to give my demon that much power, but
I kind of disagree in terms of giving it power. I feel like it disempowers it when you're able to name it and separate yourself
it's
from
the
it.
separation
That's what we do
from
in
it.
internal family systems, right?
Yeah,
What
absolutely.
Carl Jung theories
Yeah.
state to name the different parts of you and the different voices in your mind.
Yeah.
You're able to recognize that that is not you. So for me, when Ange speaks, I can recognize her voice now. I can recognize her seduction and
That's
her
interesting. Yeah. No, sorry, that is really interesting. What
Yeah.
you said, only on the stance that, and maybe this is something we can disagree or debate on, is that I think those demons are still me. Okay, and the separating myself from them is a healthy process that is part of therapy.
Yeah.
But saying that's not me anymore, I'm a changed person, I'm a new person.
Well, then that's repressing and
Absolutely,
ignoring.
absolutely.
It's separation, not repression.
Absolutely, and that's the language I think a lot of people, when they go through sobriety,
Yeah.
they're like, oh, that's not me anymore. But and I think maybe, actually no, maybe we're not
It's a part of
disagreeing.
you.
But yeah, it's a part of you that will always be there. It will always be there, and that has to be something you have to be able to look in the eye every day.
Yeah.
We have numerous voices of temptation in our head every single day, and like I say, it doesn't have to be substances. It can be any kind of distraction and removal of responsibility. And sometimes it's less about giving the demons space or not giving them space, but I guess if we're using the term demons and devils, then we've got to find the angels inside of us. We've got, and we talk about young and about our inner child. I've written a lot of poetry about why there's an infant inside me who, instead of getting love and support, has been doused and powdered, as is the phrase I used, because rather than looking after that inner child that hurt, genuinely hurt, and like understandably struggling angel inside me, I've let other devils come out to play. And I know we're using terms like angels and devils and stuff, but that darkness and light, exactly. Like, I think there can be a danger of separating yourself from your past and your past self, but maybe where I think we meet in the middle is that the way you take it forward is by recognizing it as a part of you, but it doesn't define you.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the canyon that you create, like I said, the what's the line about the distance above the inferno of the days, that's recognition that those days are still there, and that is a part of your fucking history. That is a part of your tapestry now. And any addict will tell you this, that no matter how long you've been going, you'll always still have that little voice in the back of the mind. The courage it takes to look into any situation, recognize how terrified you are, and still do the right thing is the measure of a person.
Stepping into the fear.
Yeah.
I was going to go deep into psychology then, but I actually realised...
You and I need to avoid rabbit holes.
We do need to avoid rabbit holes, and there are... They are so fun to jump down, though. I wanted to speak... There were a couple of things that I did want to really touch upon, just to... I don't know, just to really get a different perspective in our story on sharing stories, speaking words, speaking poetry, sharing music to people who are on different levels and different journeys, different places in their journey, I think is really important.
Yeah,
and there were
absolutely.
things that we spoke about when you were speaking about your poem, the music.
Music, yeah.
Are there any songs that are poignant to you that helped you through this journey, and would you like to share some of them?
Yeah, I mean, like I've listed a few. I've listed a few of the ones we don't have, but we did get some songs in advance of this, and I think, where is it? I think we're gonna go for this one. So
Okay.
Macklemore.
Oh, I'm
Do you know what?
so glad you picked this one.
Macklemore, when I was a kid, was just the guy who did thrift shop, right?
Mhm.
He was just the guy who basically made vintage clothing in charity shops, somehow popularist. And I'll be honest, ignorantly, I was into like metal back then, so I completely ignored all of Macklemore's
Cut him
work.
off.
And then sobering up, going through recovery, I discovered that Macklemore has an incredibly rich back catalogue and almost entire discography talking about his relationships with drugs. And of all of the songs, Other Side, I think, is maybe the one that a lot of people have clicked onto. Other Side is one of his most popular ones. The song Starting Over is the one I wanted to play because I think it genuinely, in my opinion, it's one of the most vulnerable and honest fucking tunes when it comes to actually like staring your truth and your shame in the eye and saying actually what's on your mind, because you want to twist the truth, you want to look like the good person, the perfect sober person. You're only going to create more problems for yourself. But if you can actually, what is it he says, if I can be an inspiration for getting sober, then I can be an inspiration for starting over. And I think no matter where you're at in your recovery journey, as long as you are taking it one day at a time, it doesn't matter where you're at, as long as you're moving forward. So that's why I think this song means the most to me.
Play it, baby.
1, 2, now. Those 3+ years I was so proud of, and I threw them all away for 2 styrofoam cups. The irony, everyone will think that he lied to me. Made my sobriety so public, there's no fucking privacy. If I don't talk about it, then I carry a date. A 08-10-08, then now it's been changed. And everyone that put me in some box is saying that I never was, just a false prophet that never came. And will they think that everything that I've written has all been fake, or will I just take my slip to the grave? What the fuck are my parents gonna say? The success story that got his life together and changed. And you know what pain looks like when you tell your dad you relapsed and look him directly into his face. The seat on your shoulder's deceivingly heavy weight. Haven't seen tears like this on my girl in a while. The trust that I once built's been betrayed. But I'd rather live telling the truth and be judged for my mistakes than falsely held up, giving props, loved and praised. I guess I gotta get this on the page. Feeling sick and helpless, lost the compass where soap is. I know what I gotta do, and I can't help it. One day at a time is what they tell us. Now I gotta find a way to tell them. God help them. Yeah. One day at a time is what they tell us. Now I gotta find a way to tell them. Said I was the music they listened to when they first got clean. Now look at me, a couple days sober, I'm fighting demons. Back of that meeting on the east side, shaking, tweaking, hope that they don't see it. Hope that no one is looking, that no one recognizes that failure under that hoodie that's posted in the back with my hands crossed, shook. And if they call on me, I'm passing. If they talk to me, I'm booking up that door. But before I can make it, somebody stops me and says, are you Macklemore? Maybe this isn't the place or time. I just wanted to say that if it wasn't for Other Side, I wouldn't have made it. I just look down at the ground and say thank you. She tells me she has 9 months and that she's so grateful. Tears in her eyes, looking like she's gonna cry. Fuck, I barely got 48 hours. Treated like I'm some wise monk. I wanna tell her I relapsed, but I can't. I just shake her hand and tell her congrats. Get back to my car, and I think I'm tripping, yeah. Cause God wrote other side, that pen was in my hand. I'm just a flawed man, I fucked up. Like so many others, I just never thought I would. I never thought I would, didn't pick up the book. Doing it by myself didn't turn out that good. If I can be an example of getting sober, then I can be an example of starting over. If I can be an example of getting sober, then I can be an example of starting over.
We fall so hard, now we gotta get back what we lost. I thought you'd gone, but you were with me all along.
Wow. Yeah, fucking hell. Yeah.
Thank you so much
No,
for
it's-
picking that song. and
That song,
sharing that
there's
song.
so many like key lines in there that like, whether it's to hold you accountable or it's like to, again, like we were saying about just knowing other people have gone through similar experiences. Like, bro, fuck me, that song floors me, and I'm really trying to hold it together up here, just for the
You
podcast.
don't need to hold
like,
it together, honey.
you know, again,
We
thank you for
embrace
creating
the
a space to be vulnerable. I
tears.
think with the vulnerability, and again, it's the honesty. It's not avoiding. The dark truth. Avoiding the dark truth is why we become addicts
Yeah.
at the end of the day. And sometimes, again, if you're not able to say the words, if you're not able to create the mantra, you've got to find other people to do it for you. And I never thought Macklemore would be one of the. I've got Macklemore,
Fabulous
Rihanna,
quotes.
you know,
And fabulous
Evanescence,
words.
and amazing messages
Yeah.
to really kind of like hold on to during the darkest days, you know. So, big ups, Macklemore.
Big ups, Macklemore.
Please tell me he's not been cancelled for something, and I'm not advocating for an
I don't
arsehole
think
right
he
now.
has.
I really hope he hasn't.
Old school. When you threw that to me yesterday, I was just like, fuck, I haven't heard his name in so long. But this
Right.
song was also really poignant to me back in the day when I was
Yeah.
a little reprobate running around Bristol, knowing that I had a problem and knowing that I wanted to get out of it, but seeing someone like him on the other side.
And that's it. Is, you know, like I touched on when we talked about why I got into drugs. You know, being young, being part of the party culture, everyone's doing a bit of something or other. Even the people who don't do drugs are doing a bit of drugs, right? You know what I mean? And we talk about, like, say, sober people in recovery, people who just drink 2 pints because that's what you do, but they don't have a problem with it. The thing is like, when you've got so much romanticization of all these drugs and the party culture, you need voices. You need voices like, whether it's Macklemore, you know, Eminem's album Recovery. I mean, fucking hell, like, Not Afraid. Not Afraid feels like such a cringe song to look back and listen to, but again, that song's got me through some hard moments. Or, you know, Fugazi and Ian Mackay of Minor Threat, and their popularization of the straight edge movement, and about how they looked at the punk community, the hardcore community of the 80s and 90s, and said, we're literally killing ourselves. We're taking heroin and we're taking speed whilst trying to tear down society. Bro, if you want to tear down society, stop fucking drinking.
Yeah.
Stop destroying your body. And it's really helpful when you're in these communities to meet sober people who set a standard.
Yeah.
Who say, hey, I've just been partying at Glastonbury for 7 days and I haven't had a line or a drink. And when you realise that's possible,
Yeah.
it's a game changer. And I'd say, like, when it comes to the music in the world that we're listening to, Health is Wealth by Bob Vylan. Motherfucker.
I was
Bob
always
Vylan.
saying that before you even sent
Yo,
me that song.
Health is Wealth
So
by Bob
beautiful, but
Vylan.
so
That-
true.
I recommend anyone who is trying to go, not just through sobriety, but trying to look after their body, fucking Sharpie the lyrics of that word on your favourite jacket or paint it on a wall, go and graffiti up a police station and write the fucking words of that song all over a city, because we need more artists, and that's actors, that's politicians. We need people across the board, not just advocating for sobriety because it's the clean thing to do or the right thing to do, but because it's actually, it gives you the agency to be a better version of you. And I think people like voices like Bob Dylan are so needed, so quintessential in society. And you know, sobriety and health is not just the only thing that the two Bobs talk about, but that song "Health is Wealth" for me is that I listen to it every morning without fail.
I wanted to talk to you about the discussion that we always seem to get into of boring and fun.
Boring and fun.
Boring and
Oh my
fun.
God, yeah.
Well, I spoke to one of my best mates, Ross, who has been 3 years sober now, and just wanted to get some insights of him, things for us to talk about. And one of the things he said was the constant conversation that I have with people of being sober and being boring.
Yeah, right.
And why that is a perception.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
Well, is this the camera?
The camera is over there.
Where's the camera?
Oh, no, it's here.
No, it is. If you need alcohol and drugs to be fun, come have a chat because you've got a problem. Simple as. Now, I do the down the line the camera to make the fucking point, and it is the hardest point, and this is the point I make to any of my friends who are still using. Okay, it's not impressive. It shouldn't be. No, sorry, it is impressive, but it shouldn't be impressive.
It shouldn't be a necessity.
That I can go out and party till 6 a.m. on Red Bull. Okay, that shouldn't be impressive. That should be a part of enjoying music, a part of enjoying people's company, a part of enjoying the decor of a music venue and the culture of a city.
Yeah.
It should not be a dependency. And because you get the two things, you either get like, oh, you're sober, so you're boring, or you're, oh my God, you're sober and you can still party, and then you get trivialized. But I would say this, especially in the last 4 years when I was, you know, in the highest state of active addiction, the people who were at the parties, the people who were still there at 6 a.m. and all they're doing is drinking their coconut water, and maybe they're in the you know, they're not in the kitchen doing cocaine, but they're making a cup of tea. Those people inspired the fuck out of me because they were quietly powerful. They weren't walking around proudly saying, hey, I'm sober and still partying, but they were proving the reason why we party. We party for community, for discussion, for debate, for connection, for creativity, for music.
Embracing
all of that is fun. And the best bit about it is when you do all that sober, you can fucking remember it the next day.
Yeah, you can.
And this is the, you know, the fun and boring thing about it is, okay, yeah, of course, when you're sober, you might have to go home early. But actually, half the time, I'm not going home early because I'm tired. If I'm tired, I'll get some more water and take a deep breath, and I've got another half an hour in me. Half the time, I'm getting tired of people who are fucked up.
Yes.
Okay? And politely, I'm not going to stare down the camera again, but like hard truths, when you're fucked, you're not coming out with the best things you're not coming up with your best ideas. When you're fucked,
quite cyclical
it's
conversations.
100%, and this is where you get very transactional relationships coming in. Like, you know, if the person I'm sitting next to isn't giving me drugs, then I'm not gonna fucking talk to them. You know what I mean? Like,
And you're not able to really read
fun.
the body language as well. What I found when I first moved back to Bristol is I still love feeling a good sound system move my body, but I never found spaces where I could go to where I could just absorb the music and move without some next guy fucked up
falling into you,
or trying to grab me and grope me, thinking that I'm dancing for them.
Trust.
One time I was out and 3 guys literally boxed me in. So I had to move, I had to push them off me and move to the other sides of the room, and they followed me over. And I'm like, you're not in your conscious mind to read my energy right now, even though I'm literally saying to you, get off of me.
Yeah.
And this is why we need, going back to like having more spaces like this, we need more spaces of connection, consciousness, community, and presence.
Trust.
Without...
And again, and like what was the point of this bit of the discussion? Those people who were drunk, you know, sexually harassing you, they still consider themselves more fun than you being the sober one at the party, right? And like, I love the fact that I can stay out, remember everyone's name, not make any not make anyone feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I can remember all those conversations and wake up the next day and then get on with a fucking 8-hour shift.
Yeah.
I love that I can do that. In fact, that's fun. That's productivity.
Yes,
And I
it
know
is.
I'm doing something better for myself every time I do that. I also don't want to make it sound easy though. And you know what? There are some people, and we talked about this, when I first quit alcohol, I think I told you this, I had a bottle of Tullamore's Irish Stew whiskey. It's one of the best affordable whiskies on the market. I had a bottle of that sitting in my room for about 3 months. So if I wanted to relapse, if I wanted to lapse, I could have just walked across the room and drunk it. I didn't have to steal from anyone. Didn't have to spend money I didn't have. Didn't have to go to the shops. Didn't have to lie. Didn't have to cheat and manipulate my way into getting alcohol. It was sitting right fucking there. And it was also an alcohol I enjoyed. And that torment, that temptation, helped me create a fortitude where of avoiding the resistance to create resistance. And avoid that temptation. And that's meant that I can sit in spaces where other people are using and not feel like I have to partake. If you don't have a very strong sense of self, as my lapse also proves in a way, when you don't have a strong sense of self, all of those boundaries and all of those lessons and all of those tools can go flying out the fucking window. And so I'm not saying to anyone in sobriety, yeah, like, it's going to be piss easy. Go to Boomtown and do nothing but Red Bull for 4 days. That's going to be a hell of an experience. But I'm going to tell you this for free. You will have a far more enjoyable time than anyone else who's getting rat-assed off their head. And we need to remember that to truly, like, live and engross yourself in life, it's to allow all of the senses to experience what's going on. When you're fucked up, like you say, half the brain's not turned on, half the brain's not working at its fullest. And truth be told, we're only ever half enjoying what we're partaking in. I have years of incredible moments I have no idea that happened. I have conversations. I've got friends that I've met, and I'm like, I don't know how we met. I don't know those incredible moments. I haven't. And I'm still sitting there going, yeah, but I've had these amazing times and I've got these great memories. Don't know, I've got photos on my phone, and if it weren't for those photos, I wouldn't know I've been there. And I know I'm not the only addict who feels that way. And this is why I use the term from my glory days to my gory days. And that's not to say that it has to be one or the other, and you have to have a very black and white attitude towards active addiction, because I'm not saying also during active addiction I wasn't having fun. But I thought the fun I was having was the peak of fun. I was the highest I could be, okay? I was in the community that was giving me the most, I believed at the time, spiritually. I couldn't have been more wrong. I couldn't have been more lost. And that's why I say that my glory days are actually my gory days, because in retrospect, looking back, I was in a scenario and I was in a situation where I had just built a community that supported my addiction rather than supporting me as a person. And that isn't even on the blame of the community, because communities will love you whether you're broken or not. That's a sign of a good community, right? They'll probably offer you more chances than you deserve sometimes. And that's also the sign of a good community. But it's also the sign of a good community to draw the line. And I think, do you know what? Like, it was a hard sentence to hear, but as someone from the community I lost due to active addiction, they said this sentence, and it was the hardest thing to hear, but fucking real. They said it's not that people want you to starve; they just don't want you sitting on their table to eat anymore, right? And it's not, and this is the other side of it when we talk about addiction, and it's about the ability to save yourself. Because if you get into these patterns where you are using and you're using your community, and then there's a cycle of mistakes and harm, your community has to hold you accountable sometimes.
Yeah, they do.
And that is really difficult. And like, I speak to friends who are still in active addiction. I speak to friends who are helping friends in active addiction, try and give them advice, because I've been on both sides of the coin. I've been the addict, the mess, the problem, and I've also been the person who's trying to get people off, and hypocritically, I was getting people into sobriety before I even got sober. There was clearly a goodness and an energy in me that was inspiring other people before I was able to inspire myself, and I feel very proud of that. But also that contradiction feels strange sometimes to sit with, you know. But I think the moment anyone finally considers that they've even got a problem and that they want to address it, that is BC AD. That is the turning point. That is the catalyst. And again, you might identify you have a problem. It still takes you 5 years of self-destruction to then address it, because like we talked about, you haven't found the community, you haven't found the skills, you haven't found the self-belief, the self-worth, the dream to actually achieve and move. But when you have just made that decision to say, you look yourself in the fucking mirror and say, I love you, but you're an addict. You can say that to yourself in the mirror. Once you've made that step, it gets way easier. And there is a whole world out there to support you and to facilitate it. You know, and I think, do you know what? I think we see this with like the Gen Z generation, especially like younger generation Alpha and stuff. They don't drink. They don't drink in the same way.
40% of Gen Z don't.
Right. And there's a reason for that. But there's multiple reasons for that. I don't want to boil it down. But one of the main reasons is they've seen the power of the destruction it's done to older generations. But what I'm worried about is that Gen Z and Gen A don't then have a new answer, per se. What they do have, though, is they have TikTok and social media, exactly. And so I'm not saying that, you know, even this sobriety is the solution.
It's
I'm
escapism in general. It's the finding a solution for escapism by bringing us back into our senses.
Absolutely. And this is why they also say sobriety is a hell of a drug, because you can get really hooked on being sober, and then that can also destroy your life. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And sobriety just has to be your stepping stone on returning or creating a better life for yourself, in my opinion.
Just before we start to wrap up, we've got 15 minutes left. Do we want to play one more song?
Yeah. So what did we look at?
Maybe we could do one each.
Yeah. Do you know what? I'm gonna play a very tongue-in-cheek song. So I've always found that country music was the original emo. If you want to listen to some good sad songs, go find country music. And a big part of why I'm an addict is to deal with heartbreak, relationships, and everything around love, and therein the lack of love. And so I've found these kind of old school country addict-esque tunes. And I don't think that they romanticize drinking. I don't think they trivialize drinking. But I think when I listen to them as an addict, I can sit there, not fully relating as if it's autobiographical, but I can sit there in the mind of these men who, I guess this song is from the 1960s. And I'm so glad there's so much country music that talks about it. So this song is, if the drinking don't kill me, her memory will.
The bars are all closed. It's 4 in the morning. Must have shut 'em all down by the shape that I'm in. I lay my head on the wheel and the horn begins honking. The whole neighborhood knows that I'm home drunk again. And if drinking don't kill me, her memory will. I can't hold out much longer the way that I feel. With the blood from my body, I could start my own still. And if drinking don't kill me, old bones, they move slow, but so sure of their footsteps as I trip on the floor and I lightly touch down. Lord, it's been 10 bottles since I tried to forget her, but the memory still lingers, lying here on the ground. And if drinking don't kill me, her memory will. I can't hold out much longer the way that I feel. With the blood from my body, I could start my own still. And if drinking don't kill me, her memory will.
And like I say, that like I listen to that song because I've been in that state, and rather than having a drink, I can listen to that song and know that that's how humans have felt. That, you know, and when we talk about that, the greater consciousness that we all belong to, that can be a beautiful, lovely, hippy-dippy conversation about how genius and happiness and one mind thinking together. Sometimes that's someone else understands the depravity of how you might feel. And yeah, do you know what? It's a very hyperbolic line. If drinking don't kill me, her memory will. That person who's saying that line needs to sober up, find some friends, get a hobby, and they'll find that neither the drinking or her memory will kill them.
No.
Actually, ironically, it'll
Very
probably
good
be
point,
something quite
darling.
unexpected. But it'll be the bus
It'll
that
be the drinking.
hopefully it'll be neither. And this is maybe why I listen to those songs, is that I don't want either to kill me. I don't want the drinking to kill me, nor the memory of the people that I've lost because of drink. Okay? And I think that's why songs like that are important to me.
Yeah.
Do you know, and like I say, that song is an old song. This is a problem that has been going on for decades and will continue on for centuries, but we have the music and we have these moments that we can kind of reflect. Would you like to share a song?
I would, but before I do, I
Go
want
for
to
it.
bring us back to the first point.
Yeah.
Bringing us back round in full
Thanks for the
circle.
coffee, by the way.
You are so welcome, my love.
Coffee, God, and cigarettes is all that I need.
Take away the coffee, take away the cigarettes. I don't think I would call it God. I would say the universe.
Same thing.
Yeah, just
The
taking away the stigma of the name and the word.
however we describe a diamond, you know, the great Kohinoor that the Brits stole from India, the great Kohinoor diamond has the most amazing facets cut into it. God is just a diamond. Whatever facet you're looking at it, it's just the universe, it's just the power, the inexplicable, the divine, the blah, 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 blah.
Looking at it
Someone
through mosaic
once said to me the other
words.
day, the universe works in mysterious ways, and they didn't even realize they were quoting the Bible. Replace God with the universe, and it all still makes sense. And
Yeah, it does.
either way, it's about believing that we need something bigger than just ourselves
Yes.
to cling on to.
We need hope.
We need hope. And like I say in my poem, sometimes all there is hope. A fool's hope may it be, it is still hope. And I think I'm half butchering Tolkien when I'm quoting that. I think there's a line that Gandalf says to Pippin. I can't tell. I have used the Lord of the Rings to get sober. I'll fucking tell you that for free. Oh my God, have I used Lord of the Rings to get sober?
So just to bring us back round to your fuck up, let's talk about lapses. Let's end the conversation on embracing our shame.
Yes.
And the importance of talking about our lapses and talking about our shame and what we have learned from it.
Yes.
So we had a conversation yesterday and we weren't really sure. You weren't really sure, if you don't mind me sharing, if you wanted to share that story. And I
guess
think it was incredibly brave to start off the conversation with that story, because my point was that if we don't talk about the lapses and the slip-ups and the fuck-ups along the
Yeah,
way,
yeah,
particularly in
yeah.
sobriety and particularly being in a culture where if you do fuck up, then you're no longer part of the group. Or
Right.
you are wrong.
Right.
And there's a difference, Brené Brown says, in shame and guilt.
Mm-hmm.
Shame is, I am wrong.
Yep.
Whereas guilt is, I've done something wrong.
Yeah. Okay.
So, like we say, it's good to hold that accountability to yourself, and it's good to, not good, but guilt can be healthy. Shame can't.
Well, I think sobriety isn't a numbers game. This isn't like, when before my lapse, I'd done 12 months, no pills, no powders, no psychedelics, and over a year and a half, no alcohol. And the ego that those numbers were giving me, clearly it wasn't fucking strong enough from stopping me from lapsing, for one. And so playing that numbers game is incredible, but the whole thing with addiction is you have to take every day as it comes.
Yes.
And it's just that for like 365 consecutive days, I didn't have an issue with X, Y, and Z, whatever. And in those moments when shit hit the fan emotionally, I did. And I think, what do I want to say on it? 'Cause, yeah, we were talking about this yesterday, and I think more importantly, it wasn't about what bits do I want to share and not share, overshare, blah, blah, blah. Is I wanted to make sure the purpose of what I shared had a purpose to it. And it's the first thing would be, no matter how sober and invincible you feel, you can always slip up. There's always the opportunity. Your devils will always come out and dance. But the most important thing is it doesn't stop the incredible work you've done. And that is what when I woke up, and I remember laying on this. I was sleeping at a music venue, sleeping upstairs. And it was the first time like I say, literally since I quit drinking and sniffing, that I was laying there with that morning after fear, the beer fear and the come down anxieties and stuff. And I was laying there going, fucking hell, we're here again, kiddo. And I knew word for word. I knew the events that had led me up to it. I knew what people I was thinking about. And fuck me, I went through, I was sobering up last year during 2025. That didn't stop 2025 from being a bastard of a year. But I stayed sober through all of those experiences. It's just that when I got to then the end of that year, that whole year of sobriety, the trap door just fell loose.
Yeah.
And that could have defined that whole experience for me, but it didn't. In fact, it was actually the moments when I wasn't part of the lapse. It was the recovery from the lapse, if anything. The decisions I made to move myself, whether I took myself out of the room, took myself out of the city, whatever. The decisions I made to then put myself into a healthy and happy environment again demonstrate the distance I've made from when I started my recovery journey. And again, they say, and it's not a cop-out, but, recovery is non-linear, and it's going to come with these ebbs and flows. And if you get dissuaded by the fuck-ups, you're never going to fully appreciate the successes. Okay? That is, and that, I'm not saying that as a proud person. I'm not proud that I lapsed. I definitely didn't fucking romanticize it. I definitely didn't lean into it, and thankfully, what I also didn't do is I didn't go, God, I've missed this, and try and even consider that it was a good thing. I knew consciously the whole time that it was a knee-jerk response to something that I had built so much to prevent against, and that in that moment, I wasn't able to. And because of that, demons came out to play. But the difference is I was able to put the lid back on that jar.
Yeah.
I was also able to put the lid back on that jar by myself. Okay, I was on the other side of the fucking world. I couldn't call people. I couldn't find even an AA group in that area. I had to sit there with myself, with that difficult feeling, and put the lid fucking back on the jar, put the demon away, get myself back up, put a good meal in my belly, get some water, get some sleep, do some journaling, and learn about who the fuck I am. Okay? But all we have is time until the end of time to learn and grow and better ourselves. as long as we fucking stick around and are actually committed to that. And I pray, I every day pray, whatever we're talking about God, even just to my own fucking fortitude, I pray that I never run into situations where that happens again. And what I've got to remind myself of is not the one time that I ended up lapsing, but all the times I didn't lapse.
Yeah.
That's what I hang on to. And that's why the lapse doesn't destroy me and eradicate all the good work I did, because I've lost jobs, I've lost relationships. There was a few events last year, again, I'm not going to go into details. Those are a few events where anyone in their right mind would have looked at an addict in the first year of recovery and gone, yeah, fair enough, you went and got a drink after experiencing that. And I didn't fucking do it. Okay, I didn't in those moments. And yeah, okay, I did in the end in that moment of weakness and that moment of difficulty. But that doesn't define me. And it doesn't define my recovery. And if anything, it gives me a lot of hope that I can get another year under my belt, maybe 2 years under my belt. But there are people who have 10 years under their belt and then have a relapse, or a lapse or a moment of, weakness. And that is a part of our story. Trying to separate the two is like separating yin and yang.
I think the important part there is that it's okay if you lapse, and that time doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. It does in terms of time does heal, but in terms of keeping track of days, weeks, months, hours, if you're obsessing over this amount of time that you haven't touched this thing, are you really escaping the addiction, or is the addiction latching onto something else?
Right. Scroobius Pip, the amazing poet, said, I have my addictions, or do my addictions have me? I have my addictions, or do my addictions have me? And like you say, that obsession, I got so fixated on how long I hadn't done something for that actually when shit hit the fan, it didn't matter. It didn't matter to me. And so I've now learned, it doesn't matter if I can proudly say 18 months no drink, 18 months no da. That's not something that I can rely on now. I need to find someone else, another skill, another grounding fact about myself that isn't just a fucking egotistical numbers game. This isn't, the scene in the opening scene of The Simpsons where it's like 10 days since the injury and they're trying to put him down to 0 and then the guy falls off the ladder. If that's how you're going to see recovery, you're going to really struggle with it. If you can, and this is why we say the phrase "just for today," and this is obviously Carl Jung. He was actually the psychologist who, I can't remember the guy who started AA, but Carl Jung was his psychologist, and it was a combination of Eastern philosophy and then Western therapy that kind of created AA. And I'm not saying the 12-step program is the solution to everyone, but at the core of it, there is this there's this, sorry, I've kind of, I'm pulling it back around. Okay. At the core of it, the reason why we say just for today is because in the grand scheme of things, win or lose it actually makes no difference. The sun will rise, the sun will fucking set, the time will go on. How you look yourself in the eye between the moment you wake up and fall asleep is how you measure yourself. Yeah. And if yesterday that wasn't the best day, thank fuck, you've got the whole 24 hours to nail it again. And if you can do that once, you can do that twice. And if you can do that twice and you can do that 365 days in a row, you've not had a drink and a sniff for a year. Congratulations. But you just focus on that one day at a time. Because if this is bigger picture shit, you can't, if you're creating when Gaudi was creating all of those incredible sculptures, he wasn't planning that big. He was working on the small detail, and then the small detail grows. And that's the real trick to it. Don't be sitting there going, right, I'm gonna sober up now. I'm never gonna do this ever again. Deal with hyperbole, and hyperbole will deal with you. And I've learned that the hard fucking way. Do you know what I mean? And you just got to focus on the little gifts. The little gifts is the day you have. This might, and not to fucking quote Nickelback. But if today is the last day you ever have, live it well. And I'm not sure living it on any substance is the best way to live it. And that's how I squirrel away my 24 hours sometimes.
My darling, thank you so much for coming on and spreading your wisdom, sharing your words, sharing your poetry, and being so incredibly honest, vulnerable, and tender in everything that you've said. I think this is going to touch a lot of hearts
I hope so.
because you've already touched mine in my journey.
I also want to say that I'm still only just one person and one voice in recovery. I don't think everything I've said is personally right. This is just my truth and my experience and my lessons. I might be a year down the line in recovery next year and disagree with some of the things I've said. But this is more just where I'm at in my journey, and if anyone can take solace in that, then that's incredible. And if anyone wants to disagree with me, then the Ark serve an amazing coffee, and I would love to talk to anyone about their opinions and their ideas, because that's how we keep each other accountable, and that's how we keep each other healthy, is through discussion. So
Right.
I'm not right, I'm not wrong, I'm just human.
So on that note, we are going to wrap up with my favourite song, which has helped me so much along the last few years, and I think works quite beautifully with what we were just talking about, is Time by Kalinga.
You used to say, with time you will learn, my little girl. But I'm still waiting for your lessons. You used to say that with time we will find each other again. And I'm still waiting for you today. Time, time, time. Time is my friend, time is my enemy. Time hurts, time heals, please just don't forget me. We used to say that time is money. Time is a treasure, don't waste it, don't spend it in vain. Life is so precious, extremely delicious. If you don't miss its train. But what is time after all? I don't have time, I waste my time. We are lost in time with so many illusions. And we keep going on, we keep going on. And we keep going on. And we do promises I don't believe anymore. I don't believe anymore in your promises. And we grow up. is my enemy. Time is my friend, time is my enemy. Time hurts, time heals, please just don't